Hi, welcome to the Medicaid Moment. In these videos, we're going to talk about long-term care Medicaid, the Medicaid program that pays for long-term care for older or disabled adults who are having trouble keeping up with their activities of daily living. And in this first ever Medicaid Moment, we are going to share some great news with you. I'm Catherine Jacobs. I'm an estate planning and elder law attorney with Warner Norcross Judd. And the great news that I'm going to share with you has to do with what we call the resource allowance. So when people are applying for long-term care Medicaid, there are tests to determine how much you have in assets to see if you are eligible for Medicaid benefits. And when you're applying for a long-term care Medicaid benefit, you're allowed to keep certain assets. So you're allowed to keep a home, you're allowed to keep a car or a vehicle, and you are allowed to keep certain cash or other assets that have value. And for years, for decades, that amount has been $2,000. It hasn't changed, but it has changed in February of 2025. It increased from $2,000 to $9,660. And you might be not seeing that as great news as elder law attorneys are, but I'm going to tell you why that really does open up some planning opportunities for a lot of our clients. So this resource allowance, this formerly $2,000, now $9,660, are those extra assets. So excluding the house, excluding the car, what other assets might someone be able to keep? So they could keep a checking or savings account, they could keep certificates of deposit, retirement accounts, cash surrender value, life insurance policies. They could keep an extra car. They could keep a retirement account. So different assets that could otherwise be cashed out for cash can be retained as long as they don't exceed that resource allowance of $9,660. So what I'd like to share with you is how this increase, albeit small, has really opened up some planning opportunities for clients. So for example, I might have clients that were applying for Medicaid and maybe they had a home and they wanted to keep the home. Even though they're living in a skilled nursing facility, they weren't ready to sell the home. And maybe they weren't ready to sell the home because they wanted to return home. Maybe they thought, you know what, I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to rehab while I'm here, and I think that at some point I'll be able to return home. But in the meantime, I can't afford to live in the skilled nursing facility, so I'm going to have to apply for Medicaid. And they want to then keep the home. Well, when the resources were limited to $2,000, and that's all you had in an extra slush fund, if you will, it made it very difficult when taxes became due or insurance, or if there was a maintenance issue, the ongoing utilities that you would have to keep the house operating, as far as pipes not freezing or, just keeping the heat on a little bit. And so limiting it to the $2,000 made it very difficult for people to do that. Other times that people might want to keep a home, for example, is homes that have been in the family for many years. I have clients who maybe have a family farm or just a family homestead that's been in the family for generations, and they're not really excited about having to sell that. It might be that they have scraped and saved their whole lives. They bought this home, they paid it off, and they really have a desire to transfer it to their children. And so that concept of this generational wealth transfer that, we as a society put a very high value on, and that shouldn't be limited to just wealthy people. Certainly there are studies that would show that being able to transfer generational wealth can help move some people out of poverty. So we certainly want to encourage that. And so the Department of Health and Human Services, by changing their policy and saying as of February 1st, 2025, that resource allowance has gone up from $2,000 to $9,660, provides us with some wiggle room, if you will, to be able to pay taxes, to pay maintenance, to pay insurance, to keep that home going for a period of time while that person is in skilled nursing. So we're really going to see just more opportunities and less burden on families who have someone in the skilled nursing when they're keeping their home. Another way that we are seeing that this increase is really beneficial to our clients is in this area of potential life insurance policies. So for example, I've had clients who are applying for Medicaid, and we find out that maybe they purchased a life insurance policy, and it's not a big policy. Usually it's a policy really meant to pay for funerals. There's a death benefit so that when this person dies, their family's not going to have to pay for a funeral. Rather, this policy will pay out a death benefit and will pay for that funeral. But sometimes those life insurance policies, although they might only pay out $10, $15, $20,000 in a death benefit, they might have a $3,000 cash surrender value. So we could cash it out and we could get $3,000 for it. And sometimes clients would have to surrender that policy, cash it out, get the money, spend it down so that they were below the $2,000. And that was kind of sad for them, because then they didn't have this life insurance policy that they could then use when they died, so their family didn't have to pay for the funeral. So we're seeing some real planning opportunities there that allows us to keep those policies with the small cash surrender value, also keep a little additional cash on hand to pay for those other things that they might need. So I'm excited to share this with you, because that is a really big thing in the Medicaid world, that we have this increased allowance. And so if you or someone you love is in a position where they're considering the need for long-term care, and they have questions about assets and what they're allowed to keep and what they're not allowed to keep, that is a great call to us here at Warner. We can help you work through that. Now, I do want to say in our next video, we're going to be talking about ways that we can keep even more than that $9,660. Under Medicaid policy, there are some rules, so this is a little teaser to come back and check out the next video, because we'll be talking about how there are opportunities to significantly increase that $9,660. So thanks for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you next time.